Doctor?
Yes.
Okay, so this is my title.
Okay.
Existential dread, cause and effects of one. I'm not sure yet. Purpose or decision or choice. I think I want to lean on to choice. I think in the consortium and Yellow Birds. So these are the books. This is just a chapter from a book, and then a few journal article that I pick and choose lah, basically, doctor. And then yeah. Are you there, doctor?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Okay. 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 I think it's the line because it's echoing as well.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So this is my skeleton. First, of course, we'll start with definition of comparative literature, right?
Do you need to?
Oh, because I saw in the course file, doctor.
Now, in the course file, it says you need to have these things part of your discussion as part of your presentation, but you don't need to spell it out in a section by itself. That's not necessary. But when you are talking about the issue of existentialism across time and space using these two novels, obviously the parameter of comparative literature will inform your selection of corpus, as well as how you approach the discussion, right?
Okay.
So you don't need to have a separate section on the definition of comparative literature and what have you, but it's best to have it in your presentation without putting it overtly in your slides if you're using slides.
Okay. Thank you, doctor. Because I also am not sure if I should use slides or word file because now my draft looks like an essay already.
Yeah.
So
Which is actually brilliant because you are working backwards. You prepare your script, and
yeah.
then you decide which bits on the script you want to put on your PowerPoint slides or any other presentation app. You can use Prezi, you can use Canva, whatever feels comfortable. But it's best to start with the script if you can, but I can't. Usually my presentation, because I find writing the writing part will come at the end. I find it more challenging to write it out. So I will go with my presentation, but every presentation will be different, and every presenter has their own unique style. So if you go with the script first, brilliant. You know what you need to say and what you want to include, and then you decide which bits you will share with your audience.
Okay. I think I get it. All right. So I'll just show you first what I have for now. So choice of text, background of the writers, just I think a little bit. Just yeah. And then I will go with meaning of existential crisis or dread that I took from Soren Kierkegaard, and also I took it from like journal articles because there's no way if, I should read Kierkegaard and Heidegger.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then yeah, so I pick and choose what I should put first, and then I focus on Jawad and Murph stories or narratives, and I focus on their the dread or crisis in their characters, and then I will put in the components of existential crisis that I took from this journal article. Where is it? Yeah, here. Yeah, and then after that, and then I will insert excerpts. After that, because I read one paper from Mary Andrews, she talked about the crisis period and stage of development. Interestingly enough, she spoke about. I mean, she talks about. Wait, yeah, the difference between existential crisis, period, and stage of development. So I thought of putting in that as well because um, she has like sophomore crisis, adult existential crisis, later existential crisis, and then measuring the degree of having an existential crisis. So, but doctor, a lot of these articles, right? Because I noticed one thing: the articles usually come from psychological or science publication,
Yeah.
and then they will always propose like solution.
Mm.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if I should put in the solution as well because usually, mostly what I read, they would propose a logotherapy by Viktor Frankl, which made me read the book. He was in the concentration camp,
Yeah.
but yeah. So should I put in as well, doctor? Would that be okay for like to close or to end the discussion?
Okay. First of all,
Okay.
you've got the creative background from your undergraduate. So my strong recommendation is to approach the seminar as a form of storytelling. You are
Okay.
telling a story. You're telling a story based on the novels that you have read, and based on the similar theme that you see in the convergence of these two novels, and how these two novels, when read through the lens of this theme that you have identified,
Mm.
allows us a glimpse into maybe the writers, i.e., Kevin Powers and Sinan Anton, maybe into the context of the Iraqi people, maybe in the context of war on Iraq, you know.
Mhm.
So the story that you want to tell about your critical reading of these two novels will help inform the thesis statement of this seminar. All right. So, what is the thesis statement? Is basically the purpose of your presentation, your seminar, the purpose of doing a critical reading of these two novels. What's your purpose? What is it that you set out to prove, or you set out to showcase using these two novels? All right. So, that being the case, you're not trying to demonstrate how to conduct therapy for people who are experiencing existential crisis. You're not. That's not your purpose,
Okay.
right? So you have to ask yourself, to what extent do these two writers, Sinan Antun and Kevin Powers, to what extent do they demonstrate, number one, the evidence of existential crisis in their character, in their protagonists, maybe not protagonists, in their characters, because
Mm.
Murphy is not the central character, right? To
Mm.
what extent do they demonstrate existential crisis in the character development of Jawad in The Cops Washer and in Murphy from the Yellowbirds? That's the first thing. That's the first objective.
Okay.
Okay. The second objective is keeping in mind comparative literature. Keeping in mind you're looking at two texts from two literary canon,
Mhm.
right? And how each literary canon is a representation of the identity, the issues of that canon, i.e., Corpse Washer is a representation of the Iraqi literature. The Yellowbirds is a representation of an 21st century American war narrative. Okay, so again, what is the theme that you have identified? How does it impact the reading of these two literary canon? So, that being the case, I don't see a place for solution of existential crisis as part of the discussion because it is not within the text, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
you are not doing a psychological reading and providing solutions. That would be what a psychology researcher would do,
Mm-hmm.
right? Go to the subjects, have a field trip, and investigate individuals who are going through trauma, who's going through these kinds of crises, and then maybe even provide solutions or some kind of structured therapy for them. But that's not what we are doing. We are appropriating theories from psychology, from psychoanalysis, from whatever relevant theories. We're appropriating it to the critical reading of the novels that you have identified. So my recommendation is, number one, to begin with a thesis statement. What is it that you're trying to prove? What is it that you're trying to investigate? What is it that you're trying to, what statement are you trying to make about these two novels read across time and space, hence comparative literature? You don't need to bring in the definition of comparative literature as a seminal discussion point, but you need to bring it in when you are problematizing the scope of your study. Because the scope of your study is that you're using these two novels to read it comparatively. Why are you doing it? Why are you doing it this way? Why have you chosen these two novels? Because they are both set within the same context. However, they differ in terms of perspective. One is from the American soldier's perspective, and the other is within the Iraqi civilian's perspective. But they are both describing the same context, and hence there is a point of comparison. So within comparative literature, this discussion has a scope, has a space. So you just need to put it that way. You don't need to go into what is comparative literature, whose definition. You do bring up comparative literature, but you do it in a very subtle way.
Okay.
But the most important component is, Shah, the story that you want to tell, the narrative that you want to tell. So existential crisis. So my first question is, what's the thesis? What are you proposing based on your reading of these two novels and the lens of existential crisis? What do you propose? That are you proposing that both writers are mindful of existential crisis in their characters, given the context of war in Iraq? Are you proposing that it's the existential crisis that impact both characters despite their different circumstance?
Yeah, pretty much that one.
Right? So you see, that is more interesting than definition of comparative literature and all that. So my strong recommendation is to begin the seminar using existential dread as your focus. So start there. Start with the issue of existential crisis and existential dread, and ask your audience, ask your those who are listening to the presentation, if they understand what is existential dread, if they understand how existential dread manifests itself in actions, in behaviors, in mindsets, right? And then you bring up what Mary Andrews have said, what Jameson and Hart have said, what Stone have said, and all the rest of it. Then based on that, you can come up with a thesis, which is, for today's discussion, you want to look at the theme of existential dread from two literary canon. One from the Iraqi literary canon, and the other is from the American 21st century American literary canon. Then you give a summary of the two scopes, the two novels, and then you go straight into the analysis. So that's how you bring up your discussion. But you notice the script is already there, but the way you present it is not like you would a journal paper, A journal paper will start with an introduction and a thesis and a literature review, but a seminar doesn't need to begin like that. A seminar can begin straight into the literature review and just not a literature review, but basically a background of study. So the background of study is about existential crisis and existential dread. That's the background of study that helps inform your statement of problem.
Okay, background study.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm writing it, Doctor. Well,
Okay, I'm recording this, so I will share this once I've rendered it, and I'll share you the link. But my point is, you notice when you present a seminar, you don't present it like a journal paper.
Yeah.
And when you do a journal paper, you need to be more comprehensive. You can't do it like you do a seminar, right? So every assignment engages a different skill set. Every assignment doesn't make you write another journal type paper. It doesn't. Your script may be there in terms of this is how I will approach my presentation, but which bit you decide to talk about first will be more focused on your audience. What is the thing that your audience needs to know first that will help develop their schema, that will help develop their knowledge, that will help engage them to the presentation? Because if you go straight into the novels, then it's very broad. But if you start with a particular theme and you say, look, for today's discussion, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about existential dread. So you ask them some questions. Maybe put some images of existential dread in terms of keywords. If there are any images, put that up and ask them if they have experienced such context. Now you've got friends from two different background, one from Malaysia and another one from outside Malaysia. So their participation will enrich your discussion. So I would begin with that. And then go into your novels. And once you're in the novel, just go straight into your analysis. After you've summarized and all that, summarize the text and introduce the writers and all the rest of it, go straight into it.
Thank you, Doctor. Because I also how to say that the transition I always put I thought of putting questions like this. So maybe I'll arrange it back like how you propose.
But I like those questions. You may start with those questions for your classmates. Do I make choices in my life?
Do you think this path
does this path you're currently in, is it the best choice for you? So those same questions, you ask your classmates first and get their response. Have you ever questioned yourself? Who am I? What am I doing in my life? What is the meaning of my life? What is the purpose of my life? So those questions help develop the schema of your audience. You want your audience, in a seminar presentation, the key is not so much what you have to say. The key is more about how you engage with your audience. Right? So you've got the stuff you want to say. Now make it in a way, present it in a way that allows your audience a participation. So like a storyteller, the storyteller keeps the audience in mind, right? So it's not the story that's important, it's how the story is conveyed that's more crucial. So that's what you are learning to develop in this seminar presentation.
Okay, Doctor. Thank you, Doctor. And then after, I have this. I took from stone paper. This is like him, asking us to imagine. Like imagine a long period of incessantly dreary, rain-soaked days, seemingly never. Just to stress, the existential dread or how dreadful things can be. So I thought of putting this or maybe putting this in one slide just to let my audience to read and further understand how it would look like or feel.
I would begin, like I said, I would begin with this. I would begin with the premise of discussing existential dread. and then on that premise end with a thesis statement saying that for today's presentation, we will be discussing this theme of existential dread on the two novels that I have chosen. So yeah,
Okay.
but apa namanya? Don't belabor it too much, but you can come back to it in your analysis. That means when you're doing excerpts from the text, you can reiterate a key point that Stone has made in his work or her work. I'm not sure Stone is.
It's a he.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but like I said, develop a schema. So if you find that the question of the questions that you had earlier, if you find that is too open-ended and it's not so focused on existential dread or existential crisis, you may begin with quotes like this. And because we're a literature classroom, so getting your participants to imagine is not something out of ordinary, which is what we do all the time as readers, right? We read and we imagine, right? So you may want your audience to do exactly that, to imagine. Okay, I'm going to read you this passage, and I want you to try to imagine this situation in your own life, and then how would you approach your situation. Then later, when you are analyzing Jawad and Murphy's context, you can connect it to what they did at the beginning. So remember at the beginning when I asked you to imagine all this? Now let's have a look at how Jawad and Murphy in these two respective novels exercise that aspect in their life, something like that.
Okay, Doctor. Oh God, you put it so well.
No, because like I said, it's the story that you are telling. You are developing the ability to tell your story. You've done the research, you've done the critical work and reading and all the rest of it. Now you have basically it's the narrative of your presentation, and that's what makes an awesome presentation when you have a clear narrative. Keeping in mind your audience hasn't been exposed to all this research that you have done. So they only get the luxury of seeing you go through this in 20 minutes. And in 20 minutes, they are supposed to understand where you're coming from, which is not fair, right? But so you need to facilitate that by giving them a point of entry as fast as possible.
Okay.
Make them connect to the topic as easily as possible, which means there might be certain things that you find, okay, this is not necessary. For my seminar, this is not necessary. However, if you choose to convert this into your final project, then you may keep them and we will talk about it in another consultation for your final project.
Okay. Understand? Yeah. So, what else?
So for instance, here, when you put insert excerpt, so you bring in your excerpts here and you're discussing the two excerpts, and then you can reiterate the issue being discussed, picking up on Frankel 1946, Thompson 2011, and Lucas 2005. You can bring it up, but you don't go through the theoretical element in detail.
Meaning, Doctor, I go through the excerpts, right?
Yes.
And then I say what Victor has said, and then I say what Jeff Thompson has said.
It's not so much what they have said, it's rather how what Murphy and Jawad's experience reiterate what theorists in the discipline of psychology, existential studies highlight. So they highlight issues of existential vacuum. So you don't go into Viktor Frankl and all the rest of it. You can put it in the footnote. You can put it under the footnote about existential vacuum, about Viktor Frankl 1946, all the rest of it. But the point is, in your analysis, you are looking for evidences of existential vacuum in the narrative of the corpse washer and the yellow bird. You are looking for evidence of inner emptiness. You are looking for those issues that the theorists have highlighted in their theories. So you're not showcasing the theories or the theorist, you are showcasing the critical reading of these two novels.
Okay.
So to reverse the order, the emphasis shouldn't be on the theories, the emphasis should be on the excerpts, and the theories come in where relevant.
Yeah. Okay. Understand now.
Okay?
Okay. So I need to rearrange.
Yes.
Doctor, do you prefer? I think slides would be better, right?
I think it will be better for you because you get to decide which bit you want to showcase. I personally feel, because I'm a PowerPoint person. I know some people don't enjoy it.
Mhm.
Seriously, I leave it to you. And I've had a master student, one of my former students. He used the whiteboard, so he basically just
Oh.
the whiteboard and he talked about things, and then wherever necessary he will scribble stuff on the board. So for instance, the question, and he will just draw, because everyone's got their own style, their present.
Yeah.
So it's not one size fits all. So I don't want you to think, oh, I have to use PowerPoint because that's what Dr. Rai wants. No, not at all.
Now, okay. Okay. Then that's up to me.
Yes.
Mm, mm, mm,
Questions?
mm. Okay, this one I asked you already. What else? What else should I ask?
You can always message me again if you've got
Okay.
any issues or whatever. I know I've got no problems.
I think for now it's pretty clear already, like what I should do and how I should arrange it and everything. So the presentation should be around 20 minutes, right, doctor? 15 to 20 minutes?
20 to 25 minutes, yes.
Oh, okay, okay. So yeah, how do I better my presentation? Because I want to score my subject.
How what?
How do I better my presentation? Like, how do I say this? Because I want people to get bored.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying engagement with the audience is crucial,
Okay, engage.
right? And you need to have clear analysis, and you need to approach your research in a critical fashion, meaning it's not about theories and ideas, it's about what's in the text, what's
Okay,
in the novels that you're reading.
okay,
Okay?
okay. What else? If I can put pictures, I should put pictures, right?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Okay, then I'll search for that. Yeah, I think that's about it, doctor. I think.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, stop sharing.
Okay. Now stop recording.
Yeah. Sorry for the messages from